Okay. Next, we will see about the CSV modules or encoded binary file modules. Hope you remember in the last class I told flat files are so typical text files means whatever you see, the same thing you read. And again, when you read the same thing. On top of that, if you have encoded files, we need to have separate modules to work. The first thing that we can see is about the CSV module. So what is a CSV file? A typical CSV file means you will have values comma separated. Everything will be comma separated. So everything will be comma separated. That's a point. So it's a very simple thing, or we can make it more complicated also. So you have multiple values, but they were separated by a comma. How do you want to create a small file like that? Means without having any kind of new modules, with whatever you have learned till now, with those things only we can create a CSV also. CSV, if I say .py file. If I navigate, if I want to just create a new file, how to do? There are different ways to create a file. So using the open function, we can create a file. So we use the context manager open, the file name, and as you are writing for the first time, we need to write means W. So within that, we can write the content. As I want the values to be comma separated, I can just write whatever I want. This open function, till now, we have worked with ordinary text files. So whatever you give within this, it will do it. Now, if I navigate to this, clear and Python a so and so. If I see, okay, 03, clear and Python a so and so. Did you see now, if I say ls, I got a new file called as myfile.csv. So if it is in a Linux format, use cat to see the content of a file. If you here in the Explorer, if you see, it is the file. In fact, VS Codes comes with this kind of extensions. So there is something called as Rainbow CSV, which is very much popular within the VS Code environment for visualizing the CSV files. Till now, without that thing, it was like this, right? So if you close and it will, if you reload, so it will be helpful. If I open it again, so it gives us the options actually. Should I open? So here, so it is expecting us to open this data. Using that, there will be multiple options basically. Whenever a particular file is there, these extensions, especially when they were there, they will be helping. If you go to these extensions, Rainbow CSV, it says like how to see the files and others usage. So how to usage, it will tell. So this is for the more usage in the dark mode. So if CSV files are column separated or tab separated files are there, you can manually highlight by writing the so and so. So you can go to here. See here what it's saying. So one selector character on the mouse and select. So means what? There will be shortcuts basically. Control P. Yeah, that's the most common thing we say. Control P. If I say extensions, Rainbow extensions, in terms of usage, I know the local commands, but here I'm thinking it is like the online ID, right? My commands are going to the browser, not for this one. So if it is local, we can use Control P. With Control P, we can go to the corresponding extension and make it open. So that is how we can see. But typically like this also you can see. So all the values are comma separated. You can visualize the content. But see, for this, I have not used any module for the same. And subsequently, if I want to read the content, whatever I have written, if I go to that read CSV, you can notice that there are two ways in which you want to read the content. How do you read the content? If you want to read the content, assuming that I'm using again the context manager, I have the content. So you know that fh.read, there are, see here, read line, and read lines. If I say read, read is the content. Say like, file content I have written. File content equal to fetch.read. And if I try to print this file content, you can notice that. If I say clear and Python be so and so, did you see that it is saying, hey, you don't have first.csv? Here, my file.csv is there. So here I'm asking first.csv. So then I should use the same name, right? So if I'm trying to ask for a new one which is not there, then it will not work for us. If you want to work, say like I used the same thing, my file_csv. Now you got a clarity that same like the read modes of the ordinary files, here also it will be there. So if I give the same thing, it can read the content. But the point is like here it is reading the entire content like a single line. Now, sir, how do you read the content individually? So means if I want to get the names out of it, I have Akila, Neha, and like Hiral. These names if I want. So how should I do? Means, so it is a string. Basically, if you observe, it is of type string. If I ask, hey, what is the type of this file handler, file content? You can notice that it is a string. Every string will have some attributes. One of that attribute that we have for this one is that it supports something called a split. When you do a split, you can write something called a /n because you want to split by new lines. Line by line, you want to split. So if I say for line in this one, if I print the line, so instead of the entire print, I'm just doing like this. Observe carefully now. You again get the same things, but in a new lines, each one separately. Okay, now I understood that it is there. So, and now in everything, you have a line of content. And within this, each line, you want to split by comma, because comma is your content separator. So now did you see that it is separating everything by comma? And within that, you need to go for the, so 0th value is the serial number and first value. So if I say to go to the first value, I can now see only the names are coming. But at one point, I got an error. So after that, saying that you don't have any value. So why? Because it is executing all the things and going to the last line. For this last line, there is nothing contained. So when you are doing a split, it will be having nothing. So it would be 0. So when you're going for new one, it is throwing an error. So for that, what we can do? If line means if line is valid. When a string, when it will be valid? It has at least one character, not an empty string. Only then you go and do. It's a good thing, right? And also, instead of you doing the split of this one, there is one more operation called as dot split lines. Split lines is basically designed for the same purpose. Exclusively working with these things, it is there. Instead of a split of /n, split lines is there. So that also works in the same way. So like this, we got every time the names. So now finally, if I want to get all the names, can I take like this? Names equal to so and so. And if I want to get these values, instead of printing names dot append of this one. And subsequently, I can print the names. And if you see, I'm getting all the names so and so. But did you see even the header name is also coming? I don't want that. So what I can do, instead of doing directly, I want from 1 onwards. I don't want the 0th value. If I ignore it, now did you see I got only the names? So this is how you generally go and print. And the point is like, we need not do this print here itself. We can do outside the context manager also we can do. Context manager is with respect to this content only. Subsequently, you don't need. Sir, can I move this line also down outside? Yes, of course, but it's a best practice to place within it if you are working with that. Once you assign to variable, from there onwards you can work. So this is what you understood. And the second way, what we can do is like, I told about the split lines. There is another smart way of doing the same things. So using the pandas. So pandas is something else that I will tell shortly. But that is also one way of reading the content. And the next thing, we did a very hard work of reading the content from this module. So now let's go for another thing. With CSV module, how do you read the same content? You did a lot of struggle. So there is one module called a CSV. If I go for the dir of CSV, you can notice that clear and Python C so and so. Did you see the list of all the attributes that it has? We have especially the read. So read, registry the dialect. So what kind of dialects we have? Dialect means it's not language. So what kind of things that we have within the patterns? So if you see default, CSV means like comma separated values. That's a default thing. But it doesn't mean that everything will be comma separated only. Sometimes code separated, sometimes tab separated, and a lot of things will be there. And also, though we have like a lot of modules, we work with the things which have underscores on either side. If I need to extract, this is the common code. So if I see like that also, still a lot of things are there. Especially we can segregate them like for reading, writing, and other operations. Now, how do you read the content? Till now, what you know. So in the same fashion of what you have done earlier, we thought of doing ls. If I say I have my file, myfile.csv, I need to give the same thing, myfile.csv. And this is how you read the content, right? So file content is equal to like this. That is how we have done earlier. Now, instead of doing that, we need to add one more extra step. So what we need to do, instead of directly reading, so we should use the CSV module. CSV for reading, it supports two kinds of operations: reader, dictReader. Reader will read the content like a tuple of values, whereas dictReader will read everything like a dictionary. So let's first go for the reader. For the reader, we should not pass the file, but the file handler. What are the file handler we have taken? That file handler. And for that, we need to pass the delimiter. By default, the delimiter is comma. The name comma separated values comes with a comma, but it can handle other kinds of delimiters also. So if you have any other explicit delimiters, you can use that. So I have a comma, so I have used. For the same thing, now I can say file content is equal to file content. So in a very smart way I'm doing right now, if I ask, hey, what is the file content? Earlier, you remember when you did a dot read, you got the entire content. So now if I do the same thing, Python C so and so, you got like an object. Sir, why sir it is like this? If I ask the type of this file content, you can notice it is of like, CSV reader object. So then how to get the values? So if you want to get the object, so it's like an iterator object. So if you want the values, you need to do list. Means list is or like convert to another tuple or anything iterable or like loop or it. If I do, now did you see that you got a list of all the contents? So in fact, this is what you're expecting. Say, if I loop or each of the value for line in or like for each line in file content, if I ask to print the each line, will I get anything? No. So can you tell me why I'm not getting any content, though I am doing everything perfect? Because these are like disposable objects. Once you get the value, subsequently it will not get. So once you are converting to list, everything you got there. So then further, if you're trying to loop, there is nothing. So if I comment that one, now did you see for each line, what are the things you got? Fine. So for each of the line, what you want? The first value. So instead of you doing all this stuff, you can simply ask, hey, name is equal to, so each line, so of one. So each line list. So it is not just a line, so but a list of values. Each line list. You got each line list of first value. That is the direct names. You can take that names and you can add to it, saying that names equal to empty. So names dot append of name. So if you print the same thing, print of f of so names equal to. If I ask the content again, you got it. But observe difference. You remember earlier I showed this example where after reading the content, I am moving the cursor everything outside and I'm doing. So here I did what? I placed everything inside and asked the names outside, right? So if I execute again, it is working perfect. Now this entire content, I want to place it outside the context manager. Will it work? If you see, it doesn't work. Initially, I didn't understand why it is happening like this. The logic is very simple. If you go for like an ordinary file read, it is reading everything to a string, right? Everything is into this. Whereas this is not a lazy loading object, it's a typical string. Whereas here in this case, instead of you loading directly, you are assigning to a variable and with a CSV reader you are reading. So it is like an optimized object. So lazy loading object. So it will have the data every time you go and reach to get the values. So that is the difference. That's the reason this one should be within the context. If you have any object with respect to this file handler with a lazy loading object involved, make the context till that and go to the outside only after your work is done. So subsequently, only you can do. So these two you understood. Next. So one more thing I forgot. Here I use like, fh.read, right? This is one way of doing. So a small assignment. So for you is like, so try with fh.read lines. So, and so instead of read, fh.read. The same example, slight modifications you need to do. So, and another assignment is that, so try with fh.read line with a yield to create like a generator. These two things you do. So coming back here, I have read the content. I told when reading from the CSV, there are two ways. CSV reader is one thing, and the other way of reading the content from a CSV is using the dict reader. So let's take that example, dict reader. So the same code I will take. So nothing different. Same code I will do. So as I don't need these things, I'll remove. So this also we don't need. We have dot read. So instead of dot read, I want to go for a dot, this one. So how it works, let me show you the interesting part. If I do instead of that a dict reader, I have commented this one, and instead of reader, cs dot dict reader. Now if I say clear and Python json, did you see that it is throwing an error called as key error? Now let me show first what is it happening. When you loop or each of the time, instead of you getting a list, you will get a dictionary. So that is the difference. Instead of every time getting you a list, you're gonna get a dictionary. So that is the reason it is failing. So let me comment this for a moment, then you will understand. Did you see each time what you are getting? Each line is like a list. So dictionary, sorry. Each line dict. Each line is a dictionary containing all the values. The beauty of dictionary is like when you want to retrieve a value, how do you do? Instead of indexing, you need to give the specific key name. The key name is name. So you can directly do. So now you can see finally your entire content is coming. So, sir, in which case we need to go for dot reader and dot dict reader in which case? Observe one thing, every comfort comes with some kind of penalty. Dictionary creation will be taking more memory compared to a list, right? Hope you understood. So both are like kind of like optimized objects only. If you want to create the same dictionary with an ordinary reader, then what you need to do? You need to know what are the columns and do it. And one more thing I forgot to mention. So here, when you are reading, you are getting the things directly, right? In the previous example, if you notice, I forgot to mention one point. So Python, C so and so. Did you observe that in the previous content, even the name is also coming? If you want to avoid the name, what you might have done? So you need to do from one onwards, right? That is what we did in an ordinary way using dot read lines and read. So if I do like this, it's gonna throw an error because for a reader object, you cannot do subscription. So that doesn't work for it. So then what is the story, sir? Then how to do? Means if you want to skip one row, there is another thing called as next. Next is a built-in function. So for getting the next value, right? So for that, if I pass this file content, okay. So instead of you doing this kind of thing, so it works perfectly. Means it will read that and it will skip instead of doing all the things. So to skip a row, to skip a row. So this is what the extra kind of thing we need to do if you don't want the header. Or if you want to take and assign the results to a header because header comes. And if you want to use the header in any way, you can use it. So whereas if you go for the dict readers, you do not do all those things. No kind of workarounds, nothing. So it will work perfectly. So depending upon use case, you can go. And the next thing, so the same things, if you want to read from a CSV file with, there is something called as pandas. Pandas is a Python module. So to work on these things. And in fact, many people call pandas as a framework rather than a library because of the amount of things that it has support with. We will again learn about pandas in detail in the last chapter, but just to see what are the DARs, you will understand a lot of features. And this also will not come by default. We need to install it. So what is the way to install? Pip install -u pandas. If you want to do for the current user only, you can do like this. If it is installed, it will update. If not, it will install. So to the current user. So it is saying like what? It is trying to update the version, right? For me. Fine. I understood it. So using pandas, how to read the file. So you have your file, whatever you file, you need not do a lot of job. In one line, you can read everything. So pandas, so are simply we call as pandas is a module, pandas.read CSV. Most people think like this is a too much large number. They give like an alias, pandas as PD. So instead of pandas, they can use .pd dot. So wherever you see, this is the common syntax you will see. So here, the logic is very simple that Python is so and so. Did you see it is reading it? In fact, till now, when you read something, you get a list or a tuple or a dictionary or something. But this is different. This is called as a data frame. It will result. Data frame is like a new kind of data structure you can think, where pandas has created that. It is, if you came from like academic background, you might have known about MATLAB. So it is similar to that kind of a matrix, kind of two-dimensional thing. So if you see here, what's happening? I'm asking, hey, what is the type of this data frame? It will say I'm of pandas core data frame. And if you ask the actual value, you got the entire thing. So see, you didn't do a lot of for loop, logging, so opening context managers, nothing. You just did a open and you read the content. Say like, sir, I want to get all the names. So nothing to worry. So you can just ask whatever you want. Say like print off this data frame is there, dot name. If I ask, I get all the names. Did you see all the names are coming? But if you want it like a list for usage, list, I can convert to list. If you see now, you got the entire names. So don't you think like, pandas is much more fast. So, and easy to work with, right? Fine. You understood about the three ways of reading the things. Now coming to the writes. Till now you have seen the writes in an ordinary fashion, but using dictionaries you never seen. So if you see, if I want to create a small CSV file, whenever you want to create a CSV file, what all the things that you need to have? First, we need to have a header. Then we need to know what values to add. So when you are reading a CSV file, so that's okay. Whatever is the header, it will read it. But when you're writing, which one to add for what, that we need to have a clarity, right? So for that, we can use, say, readers, headers dot names. Assume that I have a names. Why I'm taking tuple? Because I will not change this header name subsequently. Now, with dict reader, so you have seen till now, dict writer, I will tell. csv.dictWriter of, give the file handler, delimiter, what is the delimiter, and field names. So means the header names are called as field names. If you pass, then it will create a CSV file with this header. Will it create? Let me see. CS Python F so and so. You might have, you can see that ls means you got the file. If I say cat second.csv, you got nothing. Means after doing this, you should be very careful when you are writes. Whenever you want to write the column, you should say writer.write header. Then it will write. If I execute right now, okay, I got it executed. Ls, if I say I got it, cat second.csv file. Did you see the header came now? So this write headers is very much important. Similarly, when you're making a database connections, also data passing, we need to do a commit, right? In the same fashion, write should be very careful. Now, subsequently, if you want to write the content, so I like dictionary based writing because it's very clear. If I want to write a single row, I need to do like a dictionary. So where the key should be exactly matching the header names. So, and you give the values, whatever you give, it will add. Let's say if I do like this, as you know, I'm with a context manager, I need not close it, but whatever I wrote, it will be there. So if, okay, I didn't clear and Python, yes, so and so, I wrote it. If I say cat second now, did you see the first line and this one came? So this is where you can write a single line. Sir, what if I want to write multiple lines? So the ultimately it expects like a dictionary. So how many dictionaries you want to pass, you can pass. But instead of a write row, you should use a write rows. So this is an extra attribute. If I do right now, if I execute, so, and if I say cat CSV file, you got it? Sir, if I say 10 times also, I get the same answer because I am opened in a write mode. If I open the same thing in an append mode, that is different, right? So let's try that also. For a moment, I already have the file. Now I'm doing in an append mode. So if I say Python F so and so, you did it. Now if I see the CSV file, did you see that when you open the CSV file in append mode like this, you still got the same? The names are repeating again. So you should write a logic to get that addressed. How to avoid the header names in this one. So now that try an assignment. Assignment. How to avoid header names in append mode when executing. That's one thing. Next thing. So similarly, you have seen about CSV files dot reader and writer. And in terms of writing, there is another way of writing, right? Like a dictionary writer, there is an ordinary CSV writer also. To work with that, I think the same example I just want to use, but with a new file name called as third.csv. I give the same header names, but for the writer, it don't take anything like headers. If you want to write, you need to explicitly write, and you can mark it as a, so what's our header? Even header is also treated simply. It expects no, a tuple or a list, anything. Even you give set also it works, but right, set will not have any order. What are the values you give, it will be going very random. So if you want to write multiple rows also, this is the way. So list of tuples or tuple of tuples or any iterable of iterables you need to give, it can work. If I execute here and Python json, so it works like that. Next, if I do like a cat third, you can see the entire content. And observe, see, whenever I don't have a content, I added an empty string. Did you see that due to that you are getting 2 commas at a time? So these are the edge cases which I want to bring to your notice. And similarly, if you want to create like a CSV with a different delimiters. So CSV with a different delimiters means it can work like this. Say this time I have written another CSV in a write mode. And observe carefully, this is very much interesting. We need to add new line equal to empty. Why, sir? Means this is very interesting. Whenever you create a file, it will add the extra lines. Especially when you are doing Windows, this is most important. So if you don't write like new line equal to empty, after writing every line, it will add an extra empty line. So especially in Windows. To avoid that, we need to give. And here you can see that delimiter is slash. So let's see how it works. Python, it's so and so. So if I say cat, so others CSV dot file, did you see all the values came? So, but like without this, so commas instead of comma separated, you got a slash separated, right? And in the same fashion about this new line, if you don't have this new line also, the similar logic will happen. If I execute again, so now it is fine. It is in Linux, but in Windows when executed, every time I could see like extra line will come after each line. To avoid that, we need to write this one, especially in Python 3, because the default new line is like slash n. So in Python 3, that's the one of the other difference. And you understood how to write with these things. And the last thing that I want to bring to your notice is how do you work when you have like a non-English characters? So in terms of non-English characters, you have like, content like this. Whenever I have a non-English character CSV, I wrote in a write mode. I told about this new line thing, right? And the encoding is equal to so and so. So the default encoding itself is 80 UTF-8, but explicitly also it can give UTF-88 or 16 or CP1251 like Windows encoding or anything. And you give the header names and file handler and delimiter. Then subsequently, you need to do writer.write rows of the headers. So the same process, whatever you have, everything is fine. The extra thing you need to remember is encoding. So whenever you have a non-English characters, you should ensure to have this one. Say clear and I so and so, I get it. So if I say cat, so non-English.csv, did you see the different languages are coming? So everything. So it depends upon the UI if it is supporting that extra characters. And not only this, one more kind of edge case. Of course, if you go for pandas, everything becomes very easy. But still, before going to pandas, if you want to work with pure Python, because not every scenarios you have pandas. Now pandas is approved many organizations. Earlier, when you used to work in one of the financial organization, so they don't have in pandas. So then you need to work everything on your own. So then this one CSV module will be very handy. So the point is like, whenever you are working with the numeric data also we can specify. There is something called as quote minimal, quote non-numeric, we should specify. So within this content. And also dialect is something again important. When you are creating a CSV, there is something called as compatibilities, right? If you want like an Excel compatible, so Windows Excel compatible, Microsoft Excel, so you can specify those things. So the last thing is in terms of the code characters. So quickly I will walk through that about the code characters. You will understand a bit. So code characters means, yeah. So basically, I have created one file, CSV, writer. New line I told, encoding you understood. Dialect also I told you. So uh, basically, the list of dialects which Python is supporting, so CSV file, is like Excel, Excel tab, and Unix. If you know a bit about that, there is something called as Microsoft Excel, Open Excel, LibreOffice. So Open Office, you might have heard about all these kinds of things. They came up with some dialects. So the default is this one. So the difference, main thing you need to understand is, for Excel dialect, the default delimiter is comma. For the Excel tab dialect, so the default delimiter is /t. That's why mostly in Windows OS, you can see the same. Similarly, to get the current, so maximum field size allowed by the parser, like this, means a CSV file also can have a limit. Nowadays, you are seeing like this, but in practicality, if you see 19 columns, 20 columns, so 400 columns also will be there. That would be very fine. And also, so this is code characters and these things deal with the content. So what if you have a content within your CSV file, which also have a codes within it? So we need to handle that also. Also, what if you have a word which have a comma within it? So the most common example is you have like the last name and the first name. If you go for like, so last name and my first name. So like that, if this is there. If you see in this example, I have a comma within it, space within it, and multiple words within it. But everything should be treated as a single word. That's where we need to go for this quote. So quote operations. So there itself we should specify. See here. So quote minimal, quote all. Quote all means every word will be quoted. So quote non-numeric, quote none. So all these things we can specify. So similarly, like a CSV file, you can try for even other things like a .dat file. So and other kinds of files. If you take some example of a .dat file, so I will explain here itself. Yeah. Okay. Dat files. So .py. Dat file means like, typically the content will be like this. So you see here, they were all pipe separated, sometimes dot separated. There is no thing like a specific, there can be different kinds of things. So you should be ready to accept any things. Just the process is same for all. You need to use the same things to read. So it will read the content and do. Using CSV also, you can do the same things much smartly. And apart from this CSV, so next we need to go for the Excel files. We can come back. Like Excel, so we have next is into the Excel file. Excel files means like XML, so Excel means like what are the day-to-day you see with the Excel file. For working with Excel files, there are multiple ways. The most common and useful thing is the OpenPyXL module. Okay, Excel. Yeah. So first thing is about the OpenPyXL module. So with pandas, we can work anyhow, everything easily. So, but with the OpenPyXML module, you can see how to write an Excel file and how to read an Excel file. Till now, you know what is the way to write a file. It's very easy. We can open a file, we can write things. But what is the concept of an Excel? If you see on a typical point of view, every Excel will have some fields. We call it as cells, right? So in those cells, we need to write the content. So whenever you want to write a file, typically, we need to use that. So first, if I want to create a small file, this is how I'm doing. So simple Excel file. I'm using the OpenPyXL module. If I need to install, pip install OpenPyXL. So OpenPyXL, it will install it. As you know, if you want to upgrade it, so hyphen capital U to the current user means user. So this is how you do. And did you see that I'm doing a selective import? I want only the workbook. Using the workbook, I am creating the workbook. So every Excel will have multiple sheets. So the default sheet you want to work. Excel concept means like you will have a sheet. So book or the Excel file. Within that you have multiple sheets. Within that you want to work on the one of the sheet. Which sheet here you mentioning is active sheet. The default to only one sheet, you will have sheet one, the same thing. Within that sheet, you have the things in an order like this. So Excel, if you see the Excel columns, so it will have uh, anything free. So even this one is also there. Okay. You see, right? Every Excel will have these fields, values, and all these things. Very common. So we need to work on that. So so 1, 2, 3. So there are two things. The numbers, if you see here carefully, you will have A, B, C, D in the top, right? These are the column names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will be the line names. So a column and a line both together will imply to a single place. So if I go to this directory, CLS and Python, okay, it has created it. If I say ls, I could see the new file called as .xlsx. When you're creating an Excel file also, there are two extensions. .xlsx means Microsoft compatible. .xls means it is like OpenPyXL, so format. If I do like a cat of this file, cat of this .xlsx, did you see that you cannot read the content? So that is the difference. Till now, what are the files you have done? You are able to see. That's why they are called as ordinary text files. But these were called as binary files because they were encoded. We cannot visualize them directly. But there will be so additions. So you can go for this extensions to install for Excel and do it. Or once you restart this container also, so we can see these things. So this is how you create any Excel file. And after doing that, we need to save that to a particular path. Means you give any file name, for that file name, you same. So instead of explaining in a typical way, I'm explaining like a function such that you can reuse it. In the same fashion, if you want to work on creating the sheets, so you have one default sheet. Within that, you want to work. But what if you have like other sheets where you want to work? So let me take the example to show something. Yeah, okay. Let me take this one. Okay, see here, these are the keys and these were the rows, right? So these were the columns and these were the things. If I say this particular thing, this is B5, B5. If I say this one, this is called as F, say 9. Means for a given column and a given row, you will assign to a single cell only. And also if you see, this is the sheet that you have. The default, you have only sheet. If you write every time, there will be multiple sheets. This is sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, like this. And also, if you double tap on it, you can name the sheets. Maybe some things we can say about the students or something about the interviews, something say about the trainings. So like this, I can write different names, right? So this is what I'm trying to say. If you want to work on these sheets and working with them, so that is what we need to see now. If say I want to create these sheets, creating the sheets. So previously you worked on the active sheet, but if you want to create the sheets, you need to work like this. So see here, I did like a direct import, open pyexcel.workbook, and I'm asking, hey, what are the sheets that you have? By default, it will have only one sheet. Every Excel, either Microsoft Excel or like Office Excel or LibreOffice. or there are multiple things came these days. And if you want to create a sheet, you can do. And when you're creating a sheet, just if you say create sheet, it will say 1, 2, 3 like that. But if you want to give some numbering to it, you can give. Means when you're creating multiple sheet, if that sheet should be placed in a particular position, the sheet that you're creating should be the first sheet or second sheet like that. General indexing starts from 0 onwards, right? If I say 1, then in the second place, it will become that sheet. And for that sheet, you can give some title name also. I remember I previously told, right? We can change the custom names. Then if you subsequently give, it will do. So like this, you need to create the sheets. And subsequently, if you want to delete a particular sheet or update a particular sheet, so for that we can work .py. You see now, open pyexcel.workbook, create the sheets, same like the previous. But if you want to delete, you can index the particular sheet, and del is an operator. I told you del is a very powerful operator. With that, we can do literally anything that you want. So deleting a sheet is one way. And other thing, sir, what will happen if the content of the sheet, when you delete that sheet, it will be gone. In the same fashion, so there is one more thing for the removing the sheets. So either you can use the del operator, or you can use dot remove. This workbook that you are creating, from that you can remove that sheet. What is that sheet name? Not. So this is like the object. That particular sheet, whichever you created, if you can assign to that object and delete, like this also you can do. Next, so there is another thing about the inserting particular columns and rows into that. Say I have the particular Excel sheet. So if I want to insert the things, this is how I do. I created the workbook, active workbook I took, I got a sheet. With respect to that sheet, I'm adding. I told about this A1, A2, A3. So A is the column, and 1, 2, 3 are the row numbers. So there you are adding these things. Then you are inserting a column before A. So if you want to insert a new column, so you should specify the column index. And similarly, I'm saying insert another column. So I'm giving some value. So like that, I can insert anything. And in the same fashion, we can work with inserting or deleting the columns. Okay. I think like we can do this one, but I cannot show here. So because ls and Python is so and so. Yeah, I cannot show that. I think I can install this Excel. So for the Excel also we can have. I can ask like this. If you see here, Excel viewer is there, right? I can install this Excel viewer. So once it is installed, for everything, there will be a proper documentation. Open with or open preview like that, it will be there. So let me now do a CSV file or Excel file if I have. Okay, now you see automatically it came. So now it installed in the particular place, whatever we want. And in the same fashion, if you want to, delete the rows or so and so, you can do delete the rows. You can specify that. As I told you, if you want to delete a sheet or remove, we can use, or delete a column, you can do. Add a column. So using the add column attribute. So like that we can do. And similarly, the most important things, iterating over each of the cells. This, you may feel like this is something difficult or like, very slow, because you might have seen right now that if you want to read the entire file, how do you read? You can do dot read lines, or read a particular thing, or you have used different ways. But you need to understand that if you want to iterate over it, so you can use like iterate rows, but everything will be like a cells. Each cell you are iterating and trying to get the values. So every time you need to remember, when you want to index a particular cell, you need to give the combination of both that alphabet and this one. And not only this, so within this, we can add the content, like we can wrap the text, or we can add a chart and other informations. Say like I want to add a chart. If you don't know, so about creating the charts and others, I will tell afterwards. But as of now, if you see, so it also supports something called as charts. Within the Excel, we can create a bar chart or any other things. When you take a worksheet and you have some data, with that data you have created, and you can create a bar chart. For the bar chart, you can add the details and it will create it. So if I say Python, say I so and so, as it is created, so a bar chart. Did you see now? I think it's not showing this one, Excel, but so it was created, bar chart was created. You can do in a traditionally, ordinary Excel, you can open and see it's created. And subsequently, like this, if I go, there is one more module which I want to bring to your notice is about the XLS writer. So there are many operations like this. If I go on telling, same like this, there is one more module called as xlsx writer. By the name itself, it is saying it will do only writing. It will not read. So that is the only problem with this module. But you can write many things. It is very fast in terms of writes. Even you do concurrent executions also, it can work very better. So same like that module, this module also will not come built in. So we need to install this module also. So if you want to work with this xlsx writer, we need to install that. And subsequently, if you want to create an Excel book, so this is how we do. So you import xlsx writer, you create the workbook. There itself, you give the name, and you can add a sheet, and you can write the things. But did you see the standard format will not change? Means like working with the cells. So that concept is same for all. So xlsx writer, if I say clear and Python, if you see here in this case, you can create like a hello world so and so. So A1 it is created. And did you see where it is created? I11. Did you give that I11 WhatsApp? So whatever you have created, it is creating in that level only. But comparatively, if you see, this is the most fastest I have seen. There is another module also called as XLRD. I don't want to, bombard you with multiple modules, but focus on these two itself. Many things in the world can be done with those two. And you can add a worksheet and you can do the things. So see here, when I'm writing, I want to every time write to a particular column and so and so. So whatever I want to write, did you see I'm saying row, column means what? I am trying to get the 0, 0 value, 0, 1 value like that. So the cell can be referenced with either. So A1, A2 like that. So alphabet and a column name, row number, or like both for column and row, you can give a number. So we cannot just write like write rows and others. And on top, we can also add, formulas. Hope you know this concept of formulas, right? The beauty of Excel compared to an ordinary thing is that it supports a lot of macros, built-in macros, formulas, and others. If I open this one called as like, expenses.csv, did you see that it has added all the values? And did you see you are getting a summation? So did you see if you double click any Excel, if there is a formula, if you double click, you will get it. What I'm saying, sum of B1 to B4. What is B1? This one. B1 to B4. So B1, B2, B3, B4. These four, all the values will be added and you got it. So like this, we can add the formulas and macros also. So you can try. So how to add the macros, you will understand. I think, yeah. Yeah. So let me take one more example quickly. 04 excel.py. My God. Yeah. If you see here, I have written one more Excel file. This time I added the content. I have written the content like whatever I want. I wrote the content. So if you see, I am writing the formula and I am also mentioning the style. So how it should be. Did you see that I created the cell formats? Format means how the output should be there. So bold means like it should be bold equal to true, I wrote. For money, I wrote like, format. So money should be in a particular format, right? I have written that. If you see now, clear and Python 04, uh, it is saying that you already working on that Excel, you should close it. Yeah, this is most important. If you till now work with any other files, if you open that also, nothing will happen. It will overwrite it. But that is not a good practice, of course. But if you open, it works. Only for Excels, it ensures that you need to close that other file. If you are not closing the existing file, it will not do it. So maybe like I can open like 3 such that it will do again. What is saying? So still you are working on a workbook which has opened. I think something like happened here for this particular thing. So I think this plugin is still working with that. Okay. So typically, next, like this Excel, so we can do a lot of things with Excel modules. And I know that we can explain that with the pandas also. Pandas, same Excels, you can work in a very short way. Instead of you doing this much struggle, you can do in a typical way where, say, like if I say pandas module, if I want to create a file or read a file or anything, it would be very easy. Say I'm trying to create a small Excel file. So in pandas, you will literally write in 2-3 lines itself. So I want to create an Excel file means, pandas as PD. I have written like 2 columns and I'm trying to do from dictionary. I want to create like what is a column 1 value, column 2 values. And I'm creating dot to Excel. If you want to create to CSV, dot CSV. If you want to create to a JSON, you can say dot JSON. So that's why it is very easy for to working also. So if I say now, if I go back to that, pandas module, if I say clear and Python a so and so. So it will create that file. If you see here, there is a new file created. So you need not struggle at all if you use pandas. That's the beauty. It will make your life easy. So when you're working. And similarly, if you want to read the thing in the same fashion, whatever you have read. So you have written, right? From dictionary and you created data frame and do. If you want to read also the same fashion you can do. Read Excel. As you have already created this pandas. So what are the name I have given? Text.xlsx. I can use the same thing. So import pandas as PD. So data frame is equal to PD dot read. See, observe how many are there. Read clip, read CSV, read Excel, read feature. So, a lot of things are there. In that, if I want to get Excel, so this is what I need to give that particular thing, text dot xlsx. If I give, it will read it entirely. And if you want to print the entire data frame, you can give. So if I say clear and Python be so and so. So no such file dot text dot. Oh, yeah, every time I confuse with this spelling. Test dot so and so. Did you see it is reading the entire file? So with this, you have like multiple operations like df dot head. So means you don't, if there are thousands of lines, you don't want all. So df dot head is there, tail is there. So, but I don't want to touch now. But whenever you are going to that particular module, I will explain in detail. Next, so same like this. Then another most popular, I would say the king of all files these days is the JSON files. Now, literally you go for anything, you will see JSON only, right? So JSON is like the default serialization technique. So if you go for REST APIs, anywhere you see. But so there was a time when Excel used to rule like that, XML, sorry. So, but JSON is popular. So what is the beauty? I have given a very big JSON just to understand. JSON means JavaScript object notation. It is nothing like a new data type. So JSON org, if I say, so there is something called json.org. Okay, yeah. So basically in Python, we have dictionaries, list, tuples, etc. So in Java also they have some things. So sorry, JavaScript. So one of that is like JavaScript object notation, mainly for the dictionaries they created. So when you are working with dictionaries, they have like different objects. Like in Python, what we have list, tuple, set, and dictionary. They have arrays. They have numbers, true, false in this way. Instead of a none for us, they have null. So they have their own data structures, their own variables. But whenever you are giving, it will convert to that format. So and give it. So why? Because most of the languages agreed that that is a common format that everyone can understand. So that's why we are working. So that is a very simple example to explain. Now, how to read these these files and how to get the data from that. Okay, so let me create a small JSON file. I want to create a JSON file. Say working with JSON file if I want to create. So JSON is very simple to understand. Assume that I'm creating a small dictionary. I have very small dictionary. I want to work. If I print this book, what will happen? Think JS 06. Okay. If I clear and say Python, so working with JSON, you got the entire dictionary. And if you want in a better way, I'm told that from pprint, import pp. There is something called as pprint also instead of this. If I use pprint of book, I showed you this difference also, but still I'm telling. This is what happens. So you have added title first and all these things. It will go in a alphabetical order. But there is one more thing called as pp. pp of, if I do the same book, now you see what will happen. The same content will come, but in the order that you have given. That's the only difference. If I just give pp, it will give the same content in a beautiful way so that we can understand and do it. Now the point is, so we are asking, hey, what is this book and what is its type and other information? You understood about that this is the dictionary and you got the values of this book details. Now we need to deal about serialization. Serialization means what? I told this concept earlier also. When you want to convert, say in pickle I told, right? So if you want to use, there is a module called as JSON. For working with the JSON module, JSON files, we have JSON module. We need to work with that. You open an ordinary file. Say how you did for pickle, the same story you will do here. You open a file with that particular format. You do in a write more. You give the file handler. So how you did for pickle.dump, in the same fashion, json.dump. So dump means you need to give the data structure and the file handler. So the moment you did it, so it will create the data structure and work. Now if I say cat ebook.json, did you see you got the content now? So if you want to see that in the file also, you can see. It is not an encoded format. You can see everything clearly. So that is how we can write a typical file. Okay, after writing, how do you want to see the data back again? Means deserialization. Deserialization means again give the same file name. You give in a write, so binary. So this because the binary files. So sorry, read binary file and json.load of the file handler. So now you got the data. So as it is not a lazy loading object, you can directly see the data. If I say here, execute, if I say clear and Python, working with so and so, did you see the details? Whatever you have given, the same way. But let me explain certain things here. So for you to understand. So the book details, what are you give? So first to understand, initially you have created the things. Initially you have a dictionary, right? Dictionary of content. You have a none, you have a true, you have a tuple. So you have these values. Now I placed the same again and retrieved. Did you see you got the same none, same tuple is not there anymore. Did you see it became a list? So maybe instead of a ordinary thing, so let me do with a this way. So using PP. PP will not take multiple arguments, only one argument. So deserialization of the data, if I ask, now it is very clear for you. Did you see in the input you have a list, you got a list. Wherever earlier you have a tuple, but your output was like list, right? Slight change, you will not get the exact thing. So you have a true, you got a true. None, none. So everything you got except this. And also within the process, how it's stored. Let me see that. So it is storing in a one big line. So it's not easy for you to read. If you want to make it much more legible, so you can give additional options. I think like, so pretty or something, there are some options actually. So if I go for this dump, you can see that it has that allow nuns, ASCII, separator, sort keys. So there are different indent. Yeah, this one, I forgot. So there is something called as indent equal to say 2 if I give. So earlier when it printed, it stored like this, right? If I do indent, now it is giving indent and it is showing very clearly. Now let's make a comparison quickly. So initially it was like this. Okay. Then subsequently, so you stored in this JSON file. When you stored in the JSON file, though you gave like a tuple, it is converted like to a list. Because in JSON, it don't know what is a list or a tuple. It knows something called as an array. Both are treated as an array only. So whereas if you see in true, that true has a corresponding thing called as small true. Similarly, we have none. It is called as like a null. So you have a string. Did you see? You have like single quotes or double quotes. It will treat everything as a double quotes. Did you observe that there is no string with a single quotes? This is the first and foremost thing that you need to remember. Because these were the rules of that language. If you have an integer, float, everything will be there as it is. But when you are retrieving back, all these things will be changed except the tuple. So that is the limitations, and this is one advantages that you need to understand. So hope you understood now. So with this, you can try to work with the json.load and json.dump. So how I did with a load and loads. So sorry, load and dump, which are for the file operations. You can do for the dump and dumpes, which are for the directly working with the strings. If you want, I can give some example, but you can try on your own further. If I give like one more example, .py. So as I told, if you want more details, you can walk through this module called as this website to get the details. But if I have some kind of data structure, if I want to convert to a JSON, but not to the file, but only a string, so we can do dumps. Sir, in which case we need to have a JSON string? Say you are making a REST API call. So that particular REST API is expecting in a JSON only. Then you cannot place in a file and pass that file to them, right? So you need to convert convert to a JSON string and pass over the network to that particular REST API. They will correspondingly read and do. And similarly, when you are retrieving, you can do it. And when you are dumping also, earlier you remember, so here I showed you, when you're dumping, you can add the indentation. And the same fashion, we can add even the sort keys and others also. So these are the various operations you have within this. So just walk through about the various dictionaries. So we can see about the remainings in the next class.